sometimes you get tired of telling your story, but you have to keep telling it until someone will hear you. And, it's not fair that you have to tell it so many times, but that's the secret. You just have to find someone who will hear your story.
I resonate so much with that. And the other thing is you finally get your diagnosis, and there can kind of be that like immediate, like, okay, validated, we were right, like something is going on. We have a name for it now. Then it begins a totally different journey. Hey friends, welcome to Child Life On Call. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a mom and I'm a child life specialist. If you're listening to the podcast today for the first time, welcome, and we want you to know that the conversations we have here are designed for parents whose child has received a medical diagnosis. I know it may feel extremely terrifying and world-changing even, but you're here now, and you're about to hear from another parent who has had the same feelings that you do right now, and they're still standing. They had the courage to come here and share what it was like for them, to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. I'm so grateful to each and every guest and each and every listener who shows up here, and it's my privilege to host this sacred space. Hey friends, before we jump into today's episode, I just want to take a minute to talk about how special this is. You're about to hear from Quinn and Kirby. They are a mother-daughter duo, and they've turned years of lived experience with Crohn's disease into a powerful, honest, and hopeful middle grade novel called Gut Reaction. But this episode is about so much more than a book. It's about what happens when advocacy starts in the home, when a daughter refuses to let her pain isolate her, even though that wasn't always the easiest choice, and when a mom decides to turn some of the hardest moments she's had and turn it into healing and connections through their storytelling. In our conversation today, we'll talk about diagnosis delays, self-advocacy, and the mental load of managing a chronic illness for years and what it means to come full circle as a parent, as a patient, and now as a storyteller. If you are a parent who is navigating an unknown or misunderstood diagnosis, or if you've ever felt dismissed or isolated in the medical world, this story is for you. We also laugh a little bit. There's times that I could probably cry, and there is so much wisdom that is shared by Kirby and Quinn. And then, of course, I had to take the personal anecdotes on how you get your adult children to live next door to you. Let's jump in. Mother-daughter, spoiler alert, they live next door to each other, and so they're going to tell us the secret to getting your daughter to not leave you when they turn 18 and they have a choice that they want to be close to you. So, hello and welcome. I would love if you guys could introduce yourselves to us.
Sure. Well, I'm Kirby Larson. I'm the mom.
And I'm Quinn Wyatt. I'm the daughter.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about what brings you here today, and starting from really the beginning.
Well, we're here specifically because I have Crohn's disease, and I was diagnosed in my teen years, but I've had it pretty much since I was born. And when I was a kid, it wasn't actually a super well-known disease. And so I found it pretty isolating to have the symptoms that comes with this condition and to sort of go through all of it on my own without a lot of peer support. And so as I got older, I really wanted kids who were going through what I went through to have something to reach out to. And my mom is an author. And so I asked her to write a book that would help support kids who are going through similar situations that I went through. And she said no for a very long time. She turned me down.
Okay, can I jump in for my
Yes.
own defense here? So because Quinn was sick for such a long time, oh my gosh, I must have taken her. I lost count of how many doctors I took her to. And as many young women and women experience in the medical experiences, sometimes she was dismissed. Like I would be told, well, she's just a perfectionist. She'll outgrow it. She's doing this for attention. And I knew my daughter was not doing this for attention. It was miserable. And so that was really hard. And so when Quinn first approached me, I thought, I don't want to revisit that time in our life. She found some medication. She was, had 2 little girls of her own. She was living a, relatively normal life. And so I wanted to focus on the positives and the here and now and not go back and look at what we had lived through, which was really so rough. And Quinn talked about feeling isolated as a child experiencing it. I was very isolated as a mom. there weren't support systems like there are now. Thank goodness there are so many wonderful support systems now.
Yeah, so she put it off for a very long time. But finally I think she came around to the idea that yeah, this could actually be a book that would be helpful and reach kids. So she
Well,
agreed.
what it took was Quinn saying, Mom, I wish I'd had a book like this when I was going through this. And so, as a writer who hears from kids all the time, that was an argument. I couldn't fight that one.
Were your fears about reliving the experiences that you went through when you were writing the book, did those come to fruition?
Yeah, I think it was one of the toughest books I've ever written because, and Quinn will talk more about this, but she wrote the lived experiences elements of the book. I've been a writer for over 30 years, so I have like the writing experience, but I had only ever experienced her situation as a mom. I didn't
Mhm.
live it. And reading it on the page, what she had gone through, it was so hard. So this was a very difficult book. Absolutely. Saying that, it is also a very funny book. It's full of hope and humor. I would call it more a friendship story than a topic story. But yeah, it really was a tough one. And I think I needed the 10 years between the time for she first asked me till we could sit down and start it. I needed that time to really, get brave again.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes so much sense that you would be scared to go back to those deep, dark moments, both of you. And it takes a ton of courage. What was the writing experience like for you?
In some similar ways, one of the things that was interesting writing this book is there are a lot of things with this disease that can be very scary. And we didn't want it to be overwhelming or scary for kids, either going through the disease or those that are reading it that have not experienced it. And so trying to choose situational passages and writing parts of the book and making it approachable, I think was interesting and hard
Yeah,
because you don't want to make it not realistic, but
right.
also you just want it to be, like I said, accessible.
Mhm.
So I think that was definitely a challenging part of writing. And then, you know, going back and looking at what I had experienced and kind of rehashing it was also hard because I think a lot of people when they go through trauma, in some, your brain suppresses it, your heart suppresses it to keep going, right? And so going back and living through those things and writing them down was not something I had ever done. And I think it was therapeutic and hard at the same time.
Yeah, it makes me think of when you're healing, it doesn't mean it's all a positive experience because with healing comes a lot of pain and a lot of questions and like, was that accurate? Was that not accurate? What do I remember? What stuck with me, what didn't? And that can be incredibly painful.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Were there any specific stories that stood out to you that you wanted to include in the book for a teaching lesson or just something to really get across to the reader?
We were pretty careful about all of the ones that we chose to put in. I think, one of the aspects of this disease that we just wanted to focus on, we have our main character's a teenager. And so going
She's
through this,
13.
she's
13.
13. As a teenager, there's a lot of other body things going on. And so
Yeah,
trying to deal with not just being a teenager and your body changing that way, but also dealing with like trying to find a bathroom, very quickly and being a little bit more on your own in terms of the educational experience. So she, having to advocate for yourself and in certain situations so that you are accommodating your needs.
right.
That was definitely one of the things that we wanted to talk about in the book as well.
For example, there's well, there's many scenes based on real life, but Quinn actually did have a middle school teacher who she had her class language arts right after lunch. I can see this teacher's viewpoint. Like you should take care of your needs during the lunch period. You have, well, it's some ridiculously short amount of time, but
Right.
half an hour. And so, generally that would be a good rule. But someone who's just had lunch who has Crohn's, you might have eaten something you didn't realize had a trigger in it. You can't wait until the passing period. You have to go right then. And Quinn had a hard time with that teacher getting her to understand that this
Of
was a
course.
reasonable request from her and not that she was trying to dodge class or anything like that. So even something that someone else might think is rather small, it's a pretty big issue. I mean, if you have to go right then. It's not, you cannot wait.
Absolutely.
So I
There's
think
2 things I wanna ask you both about as you're bringing up some things for me. One is that as a child life specialist, I had the privilege of working on an adolescent unit, and because of that, it tends to be a lot of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's and different digestive issues. One thing I learned from a patient in terms of a coping skill was that anytime he had to go to the bathroom at school, he brought his big headphones with him. He turned up his music as loud as possible, so he wasn't aware of what sounds he was making,
yeah.
and he wasn't aware of who
Oh,
was in the bathroom. Are there
right.
any other coping skills or things that you learned, Quinn, during that time?
Oh, I feel like the teen or the kids who are dealing with it today are so much better equipped than I was. I feel like I really muddled through it. So honestly, I don't feel like I had any great
Well, she always had my
tips.
number. And so when like if she was at a sleepover or something and something, she needed to go, I was, you know, we were a little team and I would come get her. I mean, that was,
Yeah,
but I think because we were so puzzled about what was going on, we didn't have solid information to make a plan in a lot of cases. And so, I feel bad about that now, but we just didn't have the knowledge. We just did not and didn't have access to the knowledge. Whereas now, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation puts out specific information just for kids, just for teens or in
yeah.
preteens and children so that, explains it in a way they can understand.
It's so true. It's so difficult to navigate, and I feel like we're entering the era of almost an abundance of resources and
Yeah.
information and people being an expert. It's incredibly difficult to see through and find out what's gonna work for you. So sometimes it's that, like, paralysis by analysis or whatever that is, like, there's so much coming at you. I would love to hear a little bit more about the self-advocacy piece because I know I had a mom on the podcast once and she said it so perfectly. And she said, I started advocating the second my daughter came out of me, like she needs this, she needs that. But the more you're in the health system and you get told it's in their head, it's in your head, what's wrong with this mom? Is she want her daughter
Oh,
to be sick? All of those things that can come, you have to really stay true to the facts and be the best expert on your daughter and yourself. Have you guys seen that translate from that time to the rest of your life?
Oh, definitely. I think learned some very important skills through the many years of dealing with the health system and all of the doctors. And even today, with doctors I've had for a long time on my team, I still have to advocate and insist on certain things because I do believe that the doctors are trying to work within their best parameters and with their best knowledge and all of that. But they don't know you or your body. And when something isn't right and you know it's not right, trying to convince them of that, if not very clear to them in medical
Sure.
terms, is incredibly hard. So it's actually funny because I think there are times now outside of the medical field where I will use my negotiating skills to try and convince
Yeah.
people of something, right? I've gotten pretty good at sticking to my guns and saying, no, this is the way it has to be, or, this is truth.
and I think for me as a mom, I mean, I really relate to that mom who said she started advocating because we took Quinn to rheumatologists. We just tried everything. We just didn't know. And I even had one doctor accuse me of like trying to make my daughter ill so that I
Mm.
could, but I never gave up because I knew there was something wrong. The problem was Quinn's labs would come back normal and they would say, well,
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with her. And finally we found Dr. Scott Lee at the University of Washington and we went in together and he started off with that same comment, Will Quinn's
Mm.
labs are normal. And I could just feel all the frustration just boiling up in me. And I, just like ready to scream. And then he said, but that's only part of the story. I know something's wrong. And both Quinn and I I'm going to cry now. We
Oh,
both,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
someone finally looked beyond the numbers and like listen to her story. And in our book Gut Reaction, Tess's doctor that kind of saves everything for her is named Dr. Lee, after that wonderful person who really heard her. I mean, I think that's part of it. Sometimes you get tired of telling your story, but you have to keep telling it until someone will hear you. And it's not fair that you have to tell it so many times, but that's the secret. You just have to find someone who will hear your story.
I I resonate so much with that, and the other thing is you finally get your diagnosis, and there can kind of be that, like, immediate, like, "Okay, validated, we were right, like, something is going on, we have a name for it now." Then it begins a totally different journey. What was that part of your journey like?
Yeah. So when I started or got fully diagnosed with Crohn's disease, there was only like two medications available. So, you know, I unfortunately burned through those pretty quickly. And then it was, you know, very important. It ended up being very important that we had the right doctor that was working with, because, he didn't just give up, right? He kept trying new different things. And the hospital that he works with is a research hospital. So he's always got kind of the forefront of all the things
That's
coming
something
down.
for parents who are listening to put in your back pocket, right? Like, look for a research
Yes,
hospital when you're
Yes.
trying to find a
Yes.
specialist. That could be another piece to the puzzle.
absolutely. I do think that that is important because they get the information first. And also there's a lot of trials that they have available to them that non-research hospitals do not have. And so I've gone through medical trials as well through his office. So yeah, you're right. It's not okay, now you have the answer and then all of a sudden it's fixed, right?
Mhm.
Especially with something like IBD, it is a lifelong journey. There's no cure. So you're continuing to go through what medication works for your body. How do you get into remission? A lot of people make choices about a more natural approaches, right? Like, do you adjust what you eat or how you live? So there's a lot of decisions to be made once that diagnosis happens.
I'm a novelist. I've been a novelist since Quinn was a little girl. And there's a saying that people without hope do not write novels. And so I think it's really important that, especially if you're writing for the age group that I write for, it's 8 to 12, you want to leave with hope. And so it was really important for us to put Tess in a situation where she did find a doctor. And then we also did show the early stages of what treatments she was going to go through. Just, we really wanted to leave a kid reader with hope that there are options for you. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the same option for each kid. And we do say that in the back matter of our book, or each person, I shouldn't just say kid, but we want to make it clear that there is something out there. And Quinn has a really poignant message at the back of the book, like, don't give up, like keep searching until you find what helps you live your best life.
Quinn, how are you feeling now that the book is completed?
It's been such a rewarding experience. We finished the book. It got published, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
Someone bought it and published.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then, one of the things I hadn't really thought about was that now all of a sudden I was going to become an advocate for this particular disease. I don't know why that didn't occur to me while we were writing the book, but
Kept distracting her, so she
That's
wouldn't figure
exactly,
it
you're
out.
like, "Don't let her know we're gonna do all these podcasts and press things."
so that has been, I'm kind of a quieter, more private person, especially around my disease. I always have been. And so this has been a very growing experience, excuse me, for me to learn how to talk about what I've went through, to learn how to talk about, the disease in sort of an advocacy way, even though I don't really feel like I should represent, the disease. That's hard for me to do, but it has been incredibly wonderful. And one of the things that has also been amazing is the responses that we've heard from other kids and adults, honestly, who read the book and say, oh my gosh, this just really resonated with me and what I'm going through in my medical journey right now. And it's very heartening to know that there's a community and people out there who are going through similar things as you. And I think I'm kind of late to that community and that game because I'd sort of been sheltering myself and my story. But now that I'm a part of it, it's really an incredible experience to be amongst these people and to share in our journeys together.
We've actually gotten emails from kids who said exactly what Quinn told me. I am so happy to see myself in a book. And one of the ones that sticks out to me that we got recently is actually from an adult who read it and just thanked us for treating the disease and the person who had it respectfully, like not making jokes about it. I mean, again, the book is funny. There's lots of humor in it, but none of the humor is at the expense of the person who's suffering from this really, I mean, unpleasant disease.
Unfair, terrible,
I was gonna say
painful,
crappy, but I thought maybe I should. But
crappy. Yes.
literally it is. It is, and that really made me feel good because we tried so hard to be honest, to be respectful of our readers, because we know they want true information, but also, just to be presented in a dignified manner, not like a parody or I can't even think of the word I would want to use, but that really touched me that this person took time to say, thank you for treating this in such a respectful manner.
Well, the intent was exactly that. And it's so amazing to hear when that happens. And I feel that way about this podcast. It's like it means so much, and you keep showing up, you give so much, and you just hope that one other person feels less alone or less isolated or
Yeah.
more seen or gets an idea for something or feels more powerful or brave or empowered. It's it's nice to know that all of the work and love that you put into something somebody else feels.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have many listeners who absolutely feel alone as we did on this journey. And, just to hear as you saw that need and like, let's try to bring some folks together so they can know they're not alone.
Well, it's interesting that I love these mother-daughter interviews, especially kind of in a retrospective processing part, right? You're years out from your experience. And we really find a lot of our listeners are those parents who are at the beginning of their journey. So trying to find out what's going on, or I'm newly thrust in this world and this is my first touch point hearing from another parent because I'm so tired I can't even think about going to a support group. Often they want to know, like, is my kid going to be okay?
Sure.
And am I going to be okay? And like you two are living testimonies to I don't know how if you would define yourself as okay or not, but maybe you guys could both share where you are.
Well, I think Quinn is more than okay. I think she's fabulous. And I adore her. And I just so proud of how articulate and compassionate she is and how she does her best to really make a good life for her beautiful daughters. I'm in awe of her. And I mean, and it's not okay. She has really tough times, which she can speak to, but I am just like, I think she's amazing. So
Absolutely.
Yes, I will share my age. I'm 42. So I've been diagnosed with this since I was 16. So, but like I said, sick with it since I was born. So I've had about half, almost getting there, half of my life passed through. And, there are really hard times. In fact, I've just been going through a pretty severe flare. And so, trying to manage that as a parent myself has been an interesting experience. But, I've had really good years in remission and I've had two successful pregnancies and, I'm married and I have a very full life outside of the disease. And so I feel like there is absolutely balance that will happen as you go through. It is a journey because you know, there is no end right now. So there are good months and bad months and, just learning how to focus on the good when the bad is happening and appreciate the good when it's there, I think is important. There is, like I said, life outside of the disease. So you can find that.
in our book, we want to, Tess kind of has the same realization, like she does not let the disease control her. It is a big part of her life now, but she does not let it make decisions for her. And that, I think Quinn is a prime example of that. I would say I was thinking about advocacy. We've also become really involved with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and we have
Amazing.
formed Team Gut Reaction, and we're doing our second annual fundraiser walk in May. And we were honored to be VIPs at Camp Oasis last summer. It's for kids who are suffering from IBD, and they can come and be safe and be kids, but there's 24-hour medical care. And
Is the best.
I know. And we just got to see the kids like rope climbing and cheering each other on and doing crafts. And I don't
Yeah.
know. It was just a remark. There have been so many advances in helping families and kids.
Well, and
And
you
this,
guys are such a big part of that now.
it's pretty exciting to be part of
Yeah.
that. We have a young fan, Maggie Wilson, who is involved in pageants, and she is now Miss Thurston County, I
Yeah.
think it is. And so we follow Maggie because she gives gut reaction to all of her friends so they can
Oh my
understand what she's
gosh.
going through. So, and I love Maggie's mom, Erin, who has this saying called purple perks, because purple is the color for the Crohn's and colitis. And so instead of looking at, like Quinn talked about, looking at the bad things, look for the good things. And so they're always looking for purple perks. And so they call our book a purple perk. So it's
I
really
love that.
proud.
I would love to hear, and we'll promise I won't keep asking you question after question, but we'll start with you, Quinn. What is something you learned about yourself going through this experience of writing this book with your mom?
Well, I think I go back to the part about learning to be an advocate. Like that has really been one of the biggest learning how to talk about my disease and talk about the disease as a whole has been a huge learning experience. And, I think I had always felt, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but just that I didn't think people would really understand. And so I felt like sharing about what I was going through would just kind of fall on deaf ears. And I think it's been really heartening to know that that's not been the case
Yeah.
and that, I think it is important to talk with others about what you're going through because you will find camaraderie and support, but only if you put yourself out there and share. And
Mm.
so I think that's been a really important lesson.
Absolutely. What about you, Kirby?
Oh, wow. Well,
I
I've
give you
learned,
a head start. I let you think about it while she talked.
yeah, I mean, I hate to like sound repetitive, but I've learned that my daughter is really an amazing human being. And I am so proud that we wrote this book together. And I'm just, I'm grateful for like, it feels like a reclaiming of those, I was so afraid to approach that terrible time again, but the book feels like a reclaiming, a redemption
Yeah.
of those years that were so awful. Parents out there listening know exactly what I'm talking about. You're just hopeless. You try again and again, and you just hit brick walls. So this story, getting it out there, seeing Quinn blossom, it just really feels like a reclaiming of that time. I guess about like, like Quinn, like not letting the disease like take
Yeah.
charge. So yeah, I think that's what I've learned, that even the worst things you can make good out of them.
Mhm. It's so profound. And I'm so grateful that there's people like you creating resources like this so that child life specialists, doctors, parents have something tangible they can hand to kids at this age. And I can imagine, Quinn, I'm 40, so a lot of people who are our age now who didn't have the resources when they were going through something may read this story and it may take them right back and really be therapeutic in the way that they process what their own journey was like. I was picking my kids up from school 2 days ago, and I fell on the curb, like, just straight walking, nothing, no trauma, no wind, not even a leaf fell on me. I just fell on the curb, and I scraped my toe, and the next day, when I actually went to look at the toe, I called my mom. I was like, "What do I do?" So, like, there's this little regressing that happens when you're not feeling well, and so for so many people like you who have kind of either had this, maybe shame's not the word, but this, I don't know, this solemn blanket over what the experience was, can now go back and regress a little and feel like a kid again and maybe see themselves in tests. And it's just an amazing gift that you're giving them.
thank you. Yeah. I think while my mom was talking, I realized I think we wrote Tessa's story what we wish my story had been, right? A
Yeah.
quick, easy diagnosis and
Friends who stood
friends who
by
stood by
her.
you. And yeah. And so I think maybe that's what we did. We rewrote the
We
story the
did.
way we wanted it to
That's
have happened.
I
that's a
love it. And
brilliant
now
way.
it's in the universe and now it's happening for other kids too in that way. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, where can people find the book? And you did mention it's for early readers,
So middle grade, it
middle
is
grade.
usually 8 to 12. However, we have been hearing from readers of all ages. I mean, I have heard from many, many, many adults who have discovered this because their cousin has Crohn's or, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
So my belief is that any children's book that is only enjoyed by children is not a very good children's book. So that's my bias, but
I
it's
love that.
called Gut Reaction by Quinn, Wyatt, and myself, and Scholastic published it, and it's available at any independent bookstore. We would really love if you would buy it at an independent bookstore, but of
Yeah.
course, it's also available on Amazon. But please support
Or
your
Barnes and
independent
Noble.
or Barnes and Noble, yeah. But please support
Wow.
your independent bookstores. And if they don't have it in stock, they can order it for you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Quinn, thank you for revisiting really hard times and being
Yeah.
honest that it's not always like rosy glasses and it doesn't always have the ending of the chapter of the book you get to close and being really honest about that. And I can imagine that part of the reason you're able to share that is because the amazing woman you have by your side.
Yeah.
And I know you really like her because you live next door. So
Right. So now you want to
now,
know.
now how do you make that happen?
I don't know how,
The
why
right
the,
house comes on sale?
Green Lobster when she was little.
I just loved the house we grew up in so much. And so when my parents were thinking it was just too much for them to like keep maintaining, I just couldn't let it go. And
Yeah.
And
I
like,
convinced my husband that it was going to be worth it. We'd have a babysitter right next door. So
Amazing.
let's do that. And then we always have childcare. And it worked.
That's awesome.
and I'm still working, so it's not like I'm over there with my nose pressed against the window every single day. So she doesn't have me in her back pocket all the
I
time.
I try to tell my mom that she's 30 minutes away, so it's not too far. She's like, "You wouldn't want me next door." And I'm like, "I
Oh.
don't know, maybe I would."
But I think part of it too is we were a team. I mean, my husband ran his own business, so he was really busy, and not that he was not a caring dad, but he just
Right.
was off doing his thing and to support our family. And so Quinn and I just became this little team. And I kind of think that's part of it too. Like there was always that bond. I mean, there's always a bond between moms and daughters, but I think we had like that little extra
You
bit
did.
because we
You went
had to
through
go through
tough
so much
times.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you spend a lot of time in the waiting rooms and the
Yes.
doctor's offices, it's,
The podcast out today is a very similar mother-daughter story. It was just the mother on the podcast, but their infusion days became their like Grey's Anatomy days. And
Yes.
Yeah.
so it was like, you find your rituals and you've got your person to do it with.
Yeah,
And that really concentrated time doesn't always happen in a busy world.
exactly. If someone wants to learn more about the book in particular, we do have a website. It's just
Great.
gutreactionbook.com, and they can go read more about it if they want to learn more.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and sharing gut reaction with us.
Your
And
mission is just lovely, and you're making a big difference. So thank you.
thank you. Well, I've got 2 kids now, and so shifts at the hospital aren't always ideal for wanting to be available for school pickup so you can fall and hurt your toe and call your
Yeah.
mom. But
Right.
this does allow me to stay connected with wonderful people like you and learn about resources and share them. And I'm so grateful. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. As a parent, you want to be there for your child, especially when it comes to their health. But healthcare can be overwhelming and confusing. The good news is child life specialists are experts who help families navigate these challenges. But often our support is only in hospitals. So imagine if you had access to these valuable tools and resources all the time. You would be able to understand medical procedures, explain them to your child, and help them feel less anxious, which also makes you probably feel less anxious. So when your child visits the doctor, has surgery, or has a medical procedure, having the right information and support can make all the difference. You, the parent, can be prepared to answer their questions, calm their fears, and advocate for their needs. Child Life Specialist tools are ready to be in your hands right now through our app SupportSpot. All you have to do is go to the iOS or Android store, type in SupportSpot. We are giving all of our listeners on this podcast access to the app for just $19.99 for an entire year. You are going to have, I'm not kidding, 7 years worth of resources and support and information that we have been building at Child Life on Call at your fingertips. With these tools in your pocket, you can transform the way your family experiences medical care. Parents, you deserve to be informed and feel confident in your child's healthcare journey. And by having access to SupportSpot, you can ensure that your child feels supported and understood no matter what medical challenges come your way. Head to the link in the show notes or go to your app store, type in SupportSpot to download it today. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So please keep that in mind as you listen today.